Afternoon, everybody. Kind of a special video, this one, that most of you will be able to relate to. And it does tie in with narcissistic abuse, but plenty of people who did not go through narcissistic abuse also suffer from this. So this video, we're going to talk about body dysmorphia, what it is, how it can present in different ways, what industries make somebody much more susceptible to suffering from it, some advice on how to deal with it. I'll talk about my own struggles with body dysmorphia, and surprise, surprise, the examples I'm going to give shouldn't surprise anybody. The industries that are most associated with body dysmorphia are modeling, gee, I wonder why; acting, again, wonder why; bodybuilders, I wonder why; and to an extent athletes, although it varies sport to sport, because that's more on ability rather than looks. Gee, I want things that you're judged on how you look. You're going to be very critical of yourself. That's not a shock. But it is also a common tactic used by narcissists to try to trigger body dysmorphia into their target. So a narcissist will criticize everything about you if you are the scapegoat, if you are the black sheep. And one of the easiest targets, because it's something that can get to, I would say, everybody, if not at least almost everybody, is their appearance. And in some cases, depending on what the person looks like, it can be low-hanging fruit. Or, the narcissist may know that this is something that someone's overly critical about, or something that they've struggled with. So body dysmorphia, simplified, is basically you are overly critical of how you look. And even when you make progress towards your goals, you don't see what other people see. It's never good enough. You're never making enough progress fast enough. You always want to change something. You're never where you want to be. And there's, some different examples associated with different industries. With bodybuilders, they have a term called bigorexia, this is among bodybuilders who use steroids, that they're never big enough. They never have enough mass. They need, more compounds, higher doses, bigger and bigger and bigger. They feel small. And this is particularly true when they go on an off cycle, because if you don't stay on the compounds, you lose your gains. You can't keep, you'll lose at least most of what you put on. And probably the best example of somebody who spoke about bigorexia would be the late Rich Piana, who was massive but always felt small, and he did dangerous amounts of gear. He was pretty open about what some of his stacks were, and I don't know that much about anabolics. I never did them myself, but in the old days at Gold's Gym, that was known as the Royd Gym in suburban Philly. That's where the competitive bodybuilders worked out. It was run by a has-been bodybuilder. He was the one supplying it, and that's not a rumor that he got arrested. I saw the cops arrest him and take the compounds out of his office. I'm not slandering the guy. This is a matter of public record that he was arrested for that. But no matter how massive they get, they feel small. And you can see how it makes no sense. Because to an average person like me or you, Rich Piana is a monster. And even if you look at him, I still listen to his channel, even though sadly he passed away at 46 last year. Jerry Ward, who was a competitive bodybuilder as well. But there's pictures, I remember there's videos that the two of them did together years ago, Rich Piana and Jerry Ward. And they were both on steroids. Now, Rich was taking way more, and he was massive compared to Jerry Ward. The size difference would be between Rich and Jerry would be between me and Jerry. A guy who's never taken any roids in his life, and Jerry, who started using in his early 20s steroids, and he was always very open about his steroid use. It's a shame. Sadly, he passed away from a pulmonary embolism. Square. That's for Jerry. Just really open about some of the dark sides of fitness and stuff. So that was the guy that I would listen to for fitness advice, and occasionally would reach out to via email for specific advice, and he would always reply. But the other end, this is something that I can speak about, on the modeling side, thinness, 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 thinness. So this is particularly true with female models. They're never thin enough. They want to get down in that neck size, particularly runway models. It's not as bad as it was in the culture now as it was in the old days, but it's still there. And, Anna was pretty prevalent amongst young female models when I was in the industry in the mid 2000s. You all know what I mean by Anna. And yeah, a lot of people, that's different from body dysmorphia, because that's an actual mental thing where they're constantly weighing themselves, seeing if their weight's going down. They're constantly doing cardio. They're restricting. That's on a whole nother level. That could kill you. Body dysmorphia is just, you're not being realistic with how you look. You're not happy, and you constantly want to do something about it. And you have trouble seeing results. I struggle with it too. I'm never cut enough. I never have enough definition, and I'm still working on it. That's why I put the thumbnail that I did. Now, keep in mind, in that thumbnail, that's just me messing around in my bathroom mirror. It's not like I did a prep for a photo shoot, because obviously I would do a juice cleanse and diuretics prior to pull my water weight and look as cut as I possibly could, make sure I was freshly shaven, and put some kind of tanning product on as well. But, and again, I'm not saying that the physique I have in that picture is great, but when I see it, or when I look in the mirror and I flex like that, I don't see much definition at all. And by the way, I know I don't have any size. I'm not going for size. In modeling, it's about leanness and being cut. Size, even on a male, isn't really important. And plus, guys, if you don't know, if you're natural, like not on any anabolics or anything, some guys can get cut, some guys can get big. It's typically one or the other if you're natural. Occasionally there's genetic freaks who can do both, but to be, to have size and to be cut like that naturally is something that most guys can't do, or at least not sustain. And I just don't have the genetics to be naturally big. In the old days, I could throw up decent weights. I was never that strong. Well, I was pretty good. I could put up decent numbers on the squat rack in the days before my knee replacement. But I always struggled with a bench. I can never have a big chest. It's just not how I'm built. I have like a swimmer's build. I don't have a build what's easy for me to pack muscle on, but I can diet down and get lean. And part of body dysmorphia with that too is, even when, and I'm finding out it's harder now because I'm 36, I'm not 19 anymore. Obviously it was easier back then. But even when you get to your goals, here's the other thing with body dysmorphia. You let's say you're finally happy, like you're finally happy with your physique. Well, it's going to be a physique that's not easy to maintain. It's the same with women getting to their desired thinness. You work your ass off to get down to where you want to be, but now you have to maintain it, which also isn't easy. Because for anybody that's been in modeling, I'm sure like when you see like a male model who's shredded in an ad, I doubt he looks like that all the time. Obviously, the guy knew that photo shoot was coming and prepared for it. It's tough to stay that lean all the time. Obviously, you're constantly hungry. It also can, depending on how lean you get, it can mess with your hormones. Your blood work can be bad. There's all kinds of complications if you overdo things. Now, one of the biggest reasons why people with body dysmorphia are so dead set on these goals, be it to get big, to get shredded, to simply be thin, depending on their job or whatever, it's because it's your body and it's something you're in control of. Like, I've noticed at certain times in my life, I've been laser focused on my physique because it's like the only thing I wanted in my control. It's like, oh, well, I can't find a girl that's my type to date, and that's pissing me off. Well, I can't control that. If she's not around, she's not around. I can't get the job I want, because there's a recession and all the fire departments are on hiring freezes. But damn it, if I put the work in, I can look the way I want. That's something that, no one else can take away from me, because nobody can take away your own physique. If you're choosing to work out a certain way or to diet a certain way, to look a certain way, they can't take that away from you like a job, or they can't leave you like a relationship. So in times, in our lives, when you feel like you have little to no control and you're not where you want to be, your physique is something you have control over, and you laser focus on that. And also, here's probably the scariest part with body dysmorphia. For a lot of us, we think that when we finally reach that goal, everything else is going to fall in place. How many female actors have probably thought, well, if I just get super skinny, that'll get me cast in my dream role. Bodybuilders, if I'm just the biggest, most massive guy on stage, I'll finally get my pro card. Male models, if I just get super shredded, I'll start booking more photo shoots. It's something that just goes hand in hand with the industry that you have to learn how to deal with over time, and you have to teach yourself what's reasonable, not only in what you're trying to obtain, but in what timeline, and to do it as safely as possible. You know what I mean? There's dieting, and then there's restricting. You can, if you want to get super lean, and if you're not big, if you're, pretty scrawny, you got to maintain what little muscle mass you have. So obviously you got to have protein in your diet, and while still cutting calories. So protein shakes become your friends. Fat burners are your friends in this situation. I'm not recommending anybody take any kind of supplements before talking to their doctor or healthcare provider to see if they are healthy enough to handle that particular product I take. I am giving no advice towards what to use or advocating for anything. Yeah. In the old days, it was the ECA stack, which worked the best. If those of you who are my age, you might remember what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's not around anymore because people didn't know how to be responsible with it. But you also have to think to yourself, if you have body dysmorphia, why is that? Now, like I said, going back to narcissism, it can come from the fact that the narcissist, who was always trying to put you down, always trying to get supply off of you, saw that as low-hanging fruit, saw that as something they could drive you crazy with. Or, particularly, it could be one of two ways too. Why the narcissist did that to you is because, one, they were embarrassed of how you looked because your reflection on me, or they were pushing you to do something so then they could take credit for it, like, oh yeah, well, he gets those genetics from me. And yeah. Speaking from experience. So you have to be aware of what body dysmorphia is, and come to understand realistically where you need to be. Like, if you're doing it for a certain job, look at your competition. That can also hurt you. Look at your competition. Look what their physiques look like. Now, in my case, I get scared because I can look through magazine ads at male models that are shredded, and since I was around gear for so long, I'm like, oh shit, like he's on gear, and a lot of them are. Now people think like, what? I don't see that. They're not taking what bodybuilders take. They're taking gear. They're not taking those massive doses with like 6 or 7, and 6 or 7 different compounds. But the signs are there when you can see. Hell, there's a couple guys I saw where I was looking close, and I can't be positive, but I saw like lumps on their shoulders, and I'm like, that looks like synthol injection sites. Like, are you kidding me? Is synthol made its way into the modeling industry? That was a very like niche bodybuilder thing, like amateur bodybuilder. Not many of the pros were using it, but like guys, competing in regionals and stuff. That was a big thing back in the mid 2000s that a lot of guys from my gym were doing, and it looked painful and dangerous, injecting massive amounts of oil directly into their muscles for size. And remember, you can be dangerously thin too, men and women. Guys, if you diet down too lean, your hormones are going to crash. Blood sugar could crash too. I'm hypoglycemic. I have to be careful. I have low blood pressure too. But, the one that should scare you guys, if you get too lean and your hormones go out of whack, you're like, oh, great, all the chicks are going to love my six-pack. Maybe. But let's just say you may not feel up to playing because you dieted too lean. Women diet too lean, their hormones go out of whack too. They can stop having their period. It's there. You have to find a balance of being reasonably aesthetic and not in the danger zone. And there's some variance from person to person of how that looks. But it's something that a lot of people struggle with. It can be brought on by narcissistic abuse or exacerbated by narcissistic abuse, and it's certainly something that's more prevalent in certain industries, which is not surprising because their industry is solely based, on one's looks. And just remember, another important thing is if you have reasonable goals, you got to find reasonable goals. Understand it's going to take time. It's not going to happen, overnight. And also, especially if you're in a business where other people are going to judge you anyway, ask other people's opinions. Like I said, when I look in the mirror, if I flex, and again, I'm not where I want to be, the picture I have up here is just me messing around in the mirror. That's my baseline. That's what I look at like every day. If I obviously I want to get a little leaner. I'm working on that. But if I had a photo shoot coming up and I'm like, oh, I gotta at least look the best I can, I do a juice cleanse and diuretics to pull water weight so I could look as cut as possible, still holding the amount of fat that I have. And I would put like some kind of tanning product on to accentuate it. But still, just based on my okayish physique in the thumbnail, when I look in the mirror, like I can see it in the picture, and it's like, oh, that's not bad, we're getting there. But if I see it, like looking at myself in the mirror, I don't see any of that definition. I don't see it. And even just the average guy who doesn't do modeling or anything, I've seen, like, all my friends have dealt with over the years, like you lift, you get a pump, and then you're trying to cut, you're cutting out carbs and stuff, and then you feel flat. Like, it's a lot of guys struggle with that. It's like if you're eating, your muscles feel full, but then you feel fat. And then you're doing a cut and you're cutting carbs and stuff, and then you're seeing you're losing weight, but then your muscles feel flat. It's just like a no-win kind of thing. Sadly, a lot of women, are never satisfied, think they need to be thinner, even when, let's say people that they're trying to attract are telling them they're too thin already, but they don't see that. When they look in the mirror, like that especially in the industry like mine, maybe, like, let's say a female model or actor put on like 10 pounds for whatever reason, and it showed because she's short. And, if you're short, like if somebody's 6 foot, they can hide 10 pounds better than the person who's 5'2". And that person will lose that weight, and they'll look amazing. But they still see it even after they lose it. So they got to keep going lower and lower and lower because they don't ever want to be in that situation and criticized for that again. Particularly in an industry where any slight imperfection is going to be criticized. So it's something we all have to deal with. And I'll add this too, being overly critical of one's physique is not the same thing as telling somebody who is legitimately unhealthy that they are unhealthy. But body dysmorphia is prevalent. I'm sure many of you have dealt with narcissists and narcissistic abuse, dealt with it to some degree at some time. Understand that it's hard to overcome, in that you're never going to see exactly what you want to see because you may be conditioned from the narcissist to not be able to think you're good enough ever, no matter what you do. So be brave, especially if you have an Instagram account and stuff. If you're taking pictures of yourself anyway, get other people's opinions on what they think, or compare yourself to your peers. It can be helpful, but be aware of what body dysmorphia is, and it can be more severe in others, and it can be more severe at certain times. But I just wanted to get this video out because I figured it's a video a lot of you could relate to. I'm sorry it was a little long. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please support the channel via the links in the about section or the super thanks button, and follow me on Instagram and check out my TikTok, and I'll be back later.